Hi everyone and welcome back. Today I'll try a different type of headphone amplifier, something that I never tried on this channel as of yet. And although it might look like an oversized solid-state headphone amplifier, this is actually a tube amplifier in disguise, but instead of using the regular 300B power tubes or KT88, KT150, 170 type power tubes, this one uses a much rarer pentode, the EL84 pentode, working in a single-ended push-pull configuration. This guy is so big that I was unable to accommodate on this table, but don't worry, I'll shoot plenty of B-roll footage for you to appreciate its sheer size and industrial design. It's called HiFiMan Goldenwave GA10, and it goes for $50.99 in the US and €17.10 here locally, and let's try it out with a bunch of headphones. Compared to the other two headphone amplifiers that I tested this week, this one looks like a true Goliath. We have much thicker aluminum panels on this one, and it seems to be built like a tank. It's straightforward on the outside, having two switches that lets you select a low or high impedance output, as well as an RCA and XLR input switch. There are three headphone outputs on its front panel, out of which two are balanced, and I like the oversized volume knob that it's so pleasing to play with. There's some mechanical resistance when turning that volume knob, but not as much as I would like, so please be extra careful when using some sensitive loads, like maybe low impedance dynamic headphones or ultra sensitive IEMs. Since this is just a headphone amplifier with no extra features, we have just a pair of RCA and XLR inputs on its back, nothing more and nothing less. On the inside, however, this is quite a complex headphone amplifier, and I believe it uses some high quality components, which I will show you in just a second. It works in a single-ended push-pull configuration using four ECC83 double triodes working as driver tubes and four EL84 pentodes working as power tubes. All of these 8 tubes are made by PS Vane, and if you wish you can swap them with new old stock or with current production tubes. There are plenty of options available. What makes this amplifier quite unique is that we have EL84 pentodes that I don't remember seeing on headphone amplifiers before. This is a very old pentode. This is older compared to all of these modern ones like KT88, 150, 170 or 300B tubes, and that's why this is not a super powerful pentode. So these are not as powerful like EL34, like 2A3, 300B, KT88 and so on and so forth, and these are actually some of the lowest output power tubes that exist, that have a very different flavor compared to ultra powerful tubes that came after them. I'm quite surprised by the high quality components used in this amplifier, but I'm mostly impressed by its power supply implementation. I'm not sure you know about this, but the most crucial aspect of vacuum tube amplifiers is the power supply. The better it is, the less noisy and more articulate and dynamic the amplifier will get. The GA10 not only uses an oversized, custom-designed 120 watt C-core transformer with a series filtering and regulation stage. I see lots of VMREDs and V-shade resistors, but more importantly, I see a secondary transformer that works as a choke, which basically works as an inductor that blocks high-frequency AC noise while allowing DC current to pass with minimal loss. In simple words, it smooths out the voltage ripples immediately after voltage rectification, and that is simply dropping the noise floor further into the abyss, which is a very good thing because we want to use this amplifier not only with hard-to-drive loads, but also with ultra-sensitive loads like IEMs or easy-to-drive desktop headphones. I see lots of Rubicon caps, an Alps Blue Velvet, and plenty of Japanese relays, and overall this looks like a serious tube amplifier with an impressive selection of high-quality components. This is precisely where all of the money went, as you aren't buying only a great sound, but also all of these components that you can see right now. The GA10 outputs 3 watts in 300 ohms and 0.6 watts in 13 ohms. This is not an error, it's not the other way around, meaning that it will work much better with high impedance loads and not so much with low impedance, low sensitivity headphones, but more about that in a second. Before we move on to sound impressions, I have a couple of tips and tricks to share with you and also a few observations. First of all, after you flip the switch up and it starts to warm up and power on, you'll need to wait for about 6 minutes until sound will start passing through your headphones. So please do not panic if you cannot hear anything in the first 6 minutes of use. That is perfectly normal with the GA10. I also observed that you need to wait for about 15, maybe 20 minutes until it starts giving you the absolute best sound. Again, this is a trait for every tube amplifier that I've tried, so it's perfectly normal. Lastly, although the tubes are tucked inside this amplifier, this is not a very hot headphone amplifier on the outside. You cannot aggressively bias those EL84 power tubes, and therefore this is not a very hot amplifier. So the maximum temperature that I measured was 55 degrees Celsius or 131 degrees Fahrenheit, just above the power tubes. So this is not a very hot amplifier, although I do not recommend putting anything on top of this one. So please do not put your DAC or your streamer on top of the GA10, because those ventilation holes shouldn't be blocked. It still needs to dissipate that heat somehow. Sound-wise, although I have a few KT88, 300B, KT170 type headphone amplifiers around me, and I know exactly what to expect from such amplifiers, I never tried EL84 type headphone amplifiers, so I didn't really know what to expect from this amplifier. But I started juggling with around 6 flagship headphones that I have around me, and I have drawn some conclusions. Although it works decently, I believe, with HiFiMan Susvara Unveiled, personally, I do not recommend the GA10 for such low sensitivity, low impedance planars. It was not really providing me the best sound with the Susvara and Susvara Unveiled, so please do not buy it for your Susvara or very low sensitivity loads, because it will be struggling in delivering good dynamics and just plenty of volume. So forget about reaching 100 dB, 95 dB, that is not really possible with GA10. Although it is much better with easier to drive planars like Aria Unveiled. This is where I believe it works simply fantastic with the Aria Unveiled, and this is probably the best pairing that I believe I had with this amplifier from HiFiMan headphones, although HE1000 Unveiled also worked amazing. The moment Sennheiser HZ100S hopped on my head marked the moment when I stopped swapping and juggling headphones, because this was simply the absolute best pairing that I've heard with the GA10, and I can only presume that any other 300 ohm Sennheiser or maybe even 600 ohm Beyerdynamics will work as impressive with the GA10. Unlike KT-based or 300B type amplifiers that are trying to pump as much dopamine into your bloodstream, they try to impress you with impressive pace, performance, and also try to push as much dynamics as possible. This one comes with a very different presentation. This one is less brutal, this one is less aggressive. I find it more refined, I find it easier on the ear, and it's almost like listening to unamplified music, like there is a guy sitting near you that plays a guitar or maybe piano. It's a very different type of sound. The sound isn't meaty or thick, it's not overly excited, and it's not pushing the gas pedal to the floor, although it's really far from what I would describe as a mellow, a lean, or a boring sounding amplifier. I think this is the first tube headphone amplifier that I'm trying around here that is not trying to impress me in the first minutes of use. For example, the bass is not super strong, it's not super powerful, it's not trying to wow you at first, it's not super articulate. The trebles remain calm and refined, yet I find them quite extended and sparkly. The vocals are not solid state in nature like I'm getting from that KT 170 based Cayenne Soul 170 HA, yet the vocals are not so sweet and so mellow like I'm getting from 300B type amplifiers. Yet the music sounds as if I turned off all of my electronics and just went to listen to music at Jazz in the Park, a really nice music festival here in Romania. Music doesn't always need to be super physical, super dynamic, super punchy. Sometimes it needs to be gentle, soothing, relaxing and refined, and this is the exact sound I'm getting from the GA10. Its tonality is still natural and organic. I mean, this is still a tube amplifier at the end of the day, but it's not overly creamy, it's not overly sweet, and it's not solid state in nature like KT 170 designs can provide. This is a different type of tuning, and quite probably it will not be for everyone. For example, it won't be my top choice for super fast electronica or for aggressive music styles, because it's not trying to boost those energy levels. On the contrary, it tries to relax those dynamics. So it's not really the best choice for such musical genres. Also, it's not the best choice for low sensitivity, low impedance planars like Susvara, like Abyss 1266, like DCL Stealth and Expanse, like Mod House Tungsten. So even T plus A Solitaire P didn't sound the way that I wanted them to sound. However, the HD800S and also Arianveld simply bloomed on this amplifier and showed me a very different type of music listening when I'm relaxed, when I'm trying to just calm my thoughts. This is something that I'm getting with GA10, but not so much with the rest of tube amplifiers that I have around the house. Although it is not as powerful like the other two headphone amplifiers that I tried this week, so it's not driving all and everything, I believe this is a more specialist type headphone amplifiers. But when it clicks with a few particular headphone, doing anything else than music listening will be really, really difficult. It's contagious and it's awesome sounding with dynamic headphones, but I can say the same thing with easier to drive planars as well. I also particularly enjoyed the scale that GA10 is trying to portray, especially at my peripheral vision. It's not delivering a monster type soundstage like what I'm getting from Trafomatic Primavera or Felix Envy Susvara edition, or to a lesser degree Cayenne Soul 170 HA, but at least it's pushing the sounds outside my head and it's trying to mimic this kind of sound, like what I'm getting from these huge tube amplifiers. The other two headphone amplifiers that I tried this week, the Aoun N7 and also Singser SA2, I didn't talk too much or at all about soundstage with those two, because when I'm listening to GA10 is really overshadowing the other two. It's, without exaggeration, twice as big, twice as wide and twice as deep sounding compared to those two. There is a lot of air with the GA10 and it's never making me uncomfortable with tight rock or with cozy blues. I think it's never claustrophobic or in your face sounding, and that's another reason why I find it so easygoing. The moment I switched to low impedance mode and connected a pair of ultra sensitive IEMs on its 4.4mm jack was the moment when I realized the importance of chokes in tube amplifier designs. I'll cut to the chase. It was dead silent with all of my IEMs on low impedance mode on the 4.4mm jack, and when I paused the music I could go all the way up on the volume wheel and it will still remain dead silent with all of my IEMs. I did try a couple of tube amplifiers that were dead silent with IEMs, but one of them was 5 times the price and the other one was 9 times the price of the GA10. It's a rarity when a tube amplifier is completely dead silent at below 4 grand, but I'm happy such amplifiers still exist today. All amplifiers have pros and cons, and the things that weren't so rosy on the GA10 can be split into 2 categories. First of all will be inner resolution and detail retrieval. I believe it's okay, but not really outstanding. If I have a look at those internal components, I see plenty of high quality components. Everything is really top notch. I don't want to mention them again, that everything is really top notch except for those super affordable PS Vane Classic series. So one single PS Vane Classic EL84 here in Europe will cost you 18 euros and one single ECC 83 will cost you 16 euros. So those are the most affordable tubes that you can buy right now, and I'm pretty sure if you swap them with something better, the biggest gains you'll get will be inner detail, resolution, and also dynamics. Although I have plenty of tubes here at Sound News HQ, 5U4Gs, 300Bs, 6 SN7s, and many others, I do not have one single EL84 or ECC83, so I'm sorry I cannot do tube rolling for you, but again, I'm pretty sure if you swap those, the sound will get more transparent and clearer. I can give it right now a 7.5 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 in terms of resolution and detail. I'll give a 10 to Felix Envy Susvara edition, a 9.5 to Trafomatic Primavera, and a solid 9 to Cayenne Soul 170HA, but this one is maybe a solid 8 in terms of inner detail and resolution. And obviously, the other drawback will be its transit response. Although it's not lean or slow or boring sounding, this one is not delivering the thunder with every bass note. You can hear that bass impressively with something like HD800S and with many other dynamic headphones, but not so much with planar headphones. There is a bit less energy with the Aria Unveiled, although this pairing is also extraordinary, but dynamics are almost vanishing away with harder to drive planar headphones. Wrapping up, there are only 2 cons that I found with this amplifier and plenty of pros that I just mentioned. And while it won't drive all and everything and it won't deliver the craziest amounts of bass with planar headphones, however, what it does to the tonal balance, to mid-range purity and to acoustic music in general can only be described as pure magic. It didn't impress me right away, and I needed a couple of hours to start understanding all of its qualities, but right now I totally get it why people think so highly about EL84 powered tube amplifiers. The refinement, the softness, the calmness, the airy and easygoing nature of this amplifier is really unmatched, and I totally get it why you might chase exactly this type of sound. And if you're still searching for the Sennheiser HD800S amplifier or 600 ohm biodynamic amplifier, then I think this one just might be the one. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. Please don't forget to like, dislike, maybe subscribe to the channel if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you next week with a live DACAM combo review and also with quite probably the nicest tube amplifier that I tried so far. Have a nice weekend, everyone.